today we are starting a new chapter, that is human reproduction, which is in 12th NCERT chapter number 3. Okay, this human reproduction chapter is very important. It's interesting, it is easy because it is human physiology. We can understand the process. We'll be going through these stages, so it's easy to imagine, understand. And in NEET point of view also, it's a very important chapter. NEET 2021, if you take, 2 questions came from this chapter, right? So it is very easy, understandable and interesting also. In NEET point of view also, it has equal weightage. Now let's start the chapter. What is that? Human reproduction. Now, reproductive system is one system. Digestive system, circulatory system, endocrine system, nervous system, like that different systems make the body, right? Organ systems will make an organism. But then we are triploblastic organisms, means some systems are ectodermally derived, some systems are mesodermally derived, some systems are endodermally derived. Do you know this? Like our muscles are mesodermal in origin, they come from mesodermal tissue, and nervous tissue is ectodermal in origin. Like that, if you see, reproductive system is which dermal in origin? It is made from the embryonic mesoderm. So we can write human reproductive system is made from embryonic mesoderm. Human reproductive system is derived from where it is derived? It is derived from embryonic, I am telling it is mesoderm. It is mesodermal derived tissue. And just now I told muscular system is also mesodermal in origin, reproductive system is also mesodermal in origin. Now when we have to talk about the characteristics of humans, come on, think and tell me, are we unisexuals or bisexuals? What do you mean by unisexuals? Males are separate, females are separate. Earthworm is bisexual, we'll tell. Male and female are present in the same organism. Come on, that means we are unisexual, right? So when we have to list down the characters of humans, we are unisexuals and we are dioecious. What do you mean? We can use a word called dioecious also. What do you mean by dioecious? Male separate, female separate. Then next, so we exhibit sexual dimorphism. So when we look at an individual, we can make out whether that individual is a male or female. So in scientific term, we tell it is sexual dimorphism. So we can just tell that humans are unisexuals, right? They are unisexuals. In other way, we can tell unisexual as dioecious. We can tell that dioecious, and there is clear cut differentiation between males and females, means sexual dimorphism is exhibited. So we can also tell sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism is exhibited. What do you mean by sexual dimorphism? Clear cut distinction between males and females, right? And then which type of reproduction will humans go? Is it vegetative reproduction or asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction? Humans exhibit sexual reproduction. Next we can write humans exhibit which reproduction, children? Sexual method of reproduction. Sexual mode of reproduction. Now, it is sexual mode of reproduction we will write. It is sexual mode of reproduction. And then if we talk about fertilization, like fish and frog, are the gametes fusing outside, or the sperm comes into the female reproductive tract and fusion happens inside the female reproductive system? So if the fusion happens inside the female reproductive system, then we have to call it as internal fertilization. During insemination, during copulation, so the semen is sent into the female reproductive tract, right? So then where is the fertilization happening? Inside the female body, right? So what word we have to use then? Internal fertilization. So let me write on that point also. It is internal fertilization. Humans show internal fertilization. And then humans, they give birth to the young ones, right? So means, what is that called? Egg laying animals are called oviparous, but we give birth to young ones. What is that called? Vivipary, right? So let us keep that word also. Vivipary. Then direct development or indirect development? Is there any larval stage in our development? Or when we are born, we are resembling our adult stages also. We have the same characteristics what adults have. So we have the same characteristics. There is no indirect development. There is no larval stage. So we will tell we exhibit direct development. It is direct development. We exhibit direct development, right? So all these are characteristics where we can write with related to sexual reproduction. First point I told, so all the reproductive organs are mesodermal in origin and we are unisexuals. For unisexual, you can give another word called dioecious. We exhibit sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism means clear-cut differences between male and female. Sexual dimorphism means what it is? It is clear-cut differences. Clear-cut differences between males and females. This symbol we use for male and this symbol we use for female. Which mode of reproduction do humans exhibit? Means sexual mode of reproduction. Which fertilization they show? Inside the body now, outside the body now. Fusion happens inside the body. Gametes fuse inside the body. So internal fertilization. So do we lay the eggs and the eggs are fertilized outside? No. We give directly birth to young ones. That's called vivipary. There is no larval stage. That means there is direct development. It is direct development. Now coming to the phases of reproduction. When we have to talk about the phases of reproduction, children, there are 8 points to talk here. How many points are there? 8 points to talk under phases of reproduction. The first one, at the age of puberty, gamete production starts under the influence of sex hormones. What is this called? Formation of gametes is called gametogenesis. From there the process starts. So the first step we call it as gametogenesis. Shall I write down? What is the first step I told? It is gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? It is the process of making gametes. Male gamete is sperm, female gamete is egg. So the process of making sperm is called spermatogenesis. The process of making egg is called oogenesis. So gametogenesis means it is the formation of gametes. It is the formation of gametes, right? So the formation of male gamete is called spermatogenesis. What is that I am telling? Spermatogenesis. And formation of female gamete is called oogenesis. Now, what is spermatogenesis? Spermatogenesis is the process of formation of sperm. It is sperm production. And what is oogenesis? Oogenesis is egg production. So, this is the first step under reproduction. Now, after gametogenesis, now we told the reproduction happens inside the female body. That means the sperm should be sent into the female reproductive tract, the semen, in which the sperms, they will swim and they'll come inside. What is that process called? Releasing the sperms and the semen into the female reproductive system is called insemination. So, after gametogenesis, during copulation, what happens is insemination. Now, what is meant by insemination? Insemination means it is a transfer of male gametes into the female genital tract during copulation, during mating. So, what is insemination? It is transfer of male gametes, right? It is a transfer of male gametes. What are male gametes, children? So, male gamete is sperm, right? This is the sperm. Transfer of male gametes into the female genital tract. Transfer of male gametes into the female genital tract. When does it happen? During copulation, right? During mating, right? During copulation. What is this process called as? It is called as insemination. So, we are telling there are 6 stages. The first stage is 8 stages. The first stage is gametogenesis. The second stage is called insemination. When the sperm goes inside, so it might lead to fertilization, and we told it is internal fertilization. So, the third phase is called fertilization. What is the third step? The third step is called fertilization. What is fertilization? It is a fusion of gametes, right? Fusion of gametes leads to fertilization, helps in the development of zygote formation. Fertilization means it is the fusion of the male gamete with the egg, right? The fusion of male gamete with the female gamete. When both of them they fuse, what happens? Zygote is formed. Zygote formation. So the process of formation of zygote with the fusion is called as fertilization. That is the third step. Okay, and we can write it as internal fertilization. Write down here, add on here, it is internal fertilization. Gametogenesis, insemination, internal fertilization. Now, what happens to zygote? Tell me. The zygote which is formed in the fallopian tube starts cleavage, no? It starts cleavage. It makes 2 blastomeres, 4 blastomeres, 8 blastomeres, 16 blastomeres. So, the fourth step will be cleavage. What is the fourth step, children? Cleavage. So, in cleavage, what happens? The zygote starts dividing. Now, the type of cleavage in our body is holoblastic cleavage. What do you mean by holoblastic cleavage? Now, the human eggs, if you see, yeah, here we wrote egg. The human eggs are alecythal eggs. What do you mean by alecythal eggs? They don't have yolk. They don't have yolk. If yolk is there, then the cleavage, it cannot happen from animal pole to vegetal pole because the yolk disturbs, right? It cannot cross through the yolk. But then I am telling, our egg, human egg is alecythal, means yolk is not there. If yolk is not there, then from that end to this end cleavage can happen. It can nicely cut into 2 parts. Such a type of cleavage is called holoblastic cleavage. Zygote undergoes which type of cleavage? Human zygote undergoes holoblastic cleavage. Complete cleavage I am telling. And again, human eggs are alecythal I told, and they are acleoidic also. Our eggs are not covered by any calcium carbonate shells because eggs are not laid out. So there is no dehydration problems and all. So that's why they don't need that external coating. So that's why we can tell human egg is acleoidic. What do you mean by acleoidic? Means no shell. What do you mean by alecythal? No yolk. If yolk is not there, that's called alecythal egg. If shell, outside covering shell is not there, it's called acleoidic eggs. So our cleavage is holoblastic cleavage. It is holoblastic cleavage. It starts dividing, right? So it becomes, what does it become? Zygote develops into morula, right? Zygote develops into a solid ball. That solid ball is called morula. Then morula develops into blastula. Then blastula develops into blastocyst. All this is cleavage when it is keeping on dividing. 8 to 16 cell solid ball is called morula. 32 cell stage is called blastula. Then 64 cell stage with the blastocele is called blastocyst. Blastula becomes blastocyst. So this is called cleavage. Okay. So take a screenshot. Right. So what did we discuss in this board? So we are telling that human reproductive system is derived from which dermal? It is mesodermal in origin. What are the characteristics? We are unisexuals, means dioecious. What do you mean by dioecious? Dioecious means female separate, male separate. Sexual dimorphism, there is a clear-cut distinction between male and female. Then they exhibit sexual mode of reproduction. Fertilization is inside the body, internal fertilization. We give birth to young ones, vivipary. Direct development doesn't involve any larval stages. The phases of sexual reproduction, 8 are there, 4 we have listed, right? Gametogenesis, making gametes. After the gametes are made, the male gamete, which is motile, swims and goes into the female reproductive system. That's called insemination. Then after that, when they meet each other, fertilization will happen inside the body. So it's internal fertilization. After fertilization, it leads to formation of zygote. The zygote undergoes cleavage. Then it is dividing and making a 8 to 16 cell solid ball called morula. Then it becomes 16 to 32 cell stage called blastula. It develops a blastocele, that's called blastocyst, right? So you understood? So let me wipe it off. Then we will continue with the remaining 4 phases also. So after cleavage, what will be the next one? In the blastocyst stage, this is ovary and these are infundibulum, this is the fallopian tube, and here will be the uterus, right? So we told that the egg will be sent here and the sperm will swim here. Fertilization happens in the fallopian tube. After fertilization, cleavage, 2-cell stage, 4-cell stage, 8-cell stage happens inside the fallopian tube itself. After that, it starts descending down into the pear-shaped structure. What is this? Uterus. It descends into the uterus, and uterus has an inner lining, a folded layer called endometrium. Now inside this endometrial layer, so this nicely comes and implants, nicely comes and sits, like we sit in a sofa, we just go inside, we are embedded inside the sofa like that. This, what is this called? Blastocyst. The blastocyst gets embedded inside the uterine wall. What is that process called? Implantation. What is the process called? Implantation. Now let us write down the 5th phase is called implantation. Now tell me, what is implantation? Implantation means the blastocyst getting embedded into the uterine wall. The blastocyst embeds into the uterine wall. That's called implantation. Now, on which day the implantation will happen? Implantation will happen on the 4th day after fertilization. After the zygote is formed, it takes 4 days to get implanted, right? So we will just write down implantation occurs after the 4th day of fertilization. Now that means after fertilization, after the zygote is formed, it takes 4 days for it to divide to become 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells and all. So in these 4 days, it will develop this much, and once it becomes blastocyst, 32 to 64 cells, then it sits inside the uterus, womb, where the further development will happen. That process is called implantation. Now next one is called placentation. Now after it sits inside the uterine tissue, the maternal tissue and the fetal tissue will interdigitate with each other. This is a maternal tissue and this is a fetal tissue. They interdigitate with each other, they get connected with each other so that the food from the mother passes to the fetus. They make a tissue. What is that tissue? Placenta. Formation of placenta is called placentation. Now in placentation, we'll just write down the maternal tissue fuses with fetal tissue. Okay, the maternal tissue fuses with the fetal tissue to form a structure called placenta. Now through the placenta, like food exchange, food transport, gaseous exchange, right, all will happen, right, and removal of excretory products from the fetus, removal of excretory products from the fetus. So all this happens through that connection called placenta. So placenta is a nutritive tissue, we will tell. So when does we told implantation, after implantation it is placentation. Now after placentation, what happens? We told it is zygote. Zygote develops into morula. Morula develops into blastula. Blastula develops into blastocyst. Now this blastocyst further develops into gastrula. It further develops into gastrula. Formation of gastrula is called gastrulation. So formation of gastrula is called, what is this called? Gastrulation. Now once the gastrula is formed, in this gastrula, ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm will be formed. In the gastrula, ectoderm, all the embryonic layers, mesoderm, endoderm will be formed. Now when all the three dermal layers are formed, some systems will originate from ectoderm, some systems will originate from endoderm, some systems will originate from mesoderm. That means organ systems are forming now from these germinal layers. What is that called? Organogenesis. So seventh step, we can take it as organogenesis. Organogenesis means formation of organs. Formation of organ systems. Amma, from where are the organ systems formed? Organ systems are formed from these layers, from ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. Organ systems are formed. Now, when all these organ systems are formed, then what happens? The embryo is developing, right? Organogenesis leads to embryo development, right? So then we call it as gestation. When the baby is developing inside the mother's womb, that duration is called gestation. The duration of gestation for humans is 9 months, right? So how many months the embryo stays inside the womb of the mother is 9 months. So the fetus is developing inside the mother's womb for 9 months. After gestation, finally, when the child is fully developed, now the child will release the signals and the childbirth happens, which we call labor, which is called parturition. So the last step will be parturition. Parturition is also called childbirth. Okay, parturition. What's parturition called? It's also called childbirth. Now these are the 8 steps. I told there are 8 phases. What's the first stage? What's the first stage? Gametogenesis. After gametogenesis, sending the gamete into the reproductive system. Insemination. After insemination, when sperm goes inside, fertilization will happen. Fertilization. After fertilization, zygote starts cleaving. That's cleavage. After cleavage, in the blastocyst stage, it tries to get implanted inside the uterine wall. That's called implantation. After that, both the tissues fuse, make a contact. That's called placenta. Through that, the baby will receive the food, gases exchange, will release out the excretory materials. Now inside, what happens? Zygote is developing into morula, blastula, blastocyst and gastrula. Formation of gastrula is called gastrulation. The gastrula has ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm, all the 3 germinal layers. From all the 3 germinal layers, organ systems are developing. That is called organogenesis. Organogenesis results in formation of the embryo, that we call embryo development. The period of gestation of humans is 9 months. After 9 months, when the baby is completely developed, the baby releases the signals. Baby tries to come out. What is it called? It's called parturition. Parturition is called as childbirth. Now, when the baby is inside the mother's womb, we call it as fetus. When the baby is delivered out, we call them as infant. We call them as infant. Right? Then, after infant, what's the next stage after infant? We can call them as childhood, right? After childhood is adolescence. After adolescence, what is the age called? It's called adult age. The next one is old age, right? So these are our stages in the life cycle. So all of us have crossed through these stages. So when we are inside our mother's womb, fetal stage. When we are just born, infant stage. So afterwards, when we are in schooling, that's childhood stage. When we reach the age of puberty, 13 years, 14 years, that's called adolescence age, puberty age. After that, when we grow up, that's called adult age. After that, when we become old, that's called old age. It leads to death finally, right? So when birth is natural, death also is there. No organisms are immortal. So these are the phases of reproduction and these are the stages in our life cycle. These are the stages in our life cycle. Now when we talk about reproduction, in which age we are matured enough to participate in reproduction means, what is the age of reproduction means? The age when the puberty starts, the age when the adolescence comes, right? So that means we need to talk about adolescence now. We need to talk about adolescence. What is the age of adolescence for boys? What is the age of adolescence for girls? What changes can we see in boys during adolescence? What changes we can see girls during adolescence? Let us see that. So far, what did we discuss? We discussed the terms related to sexual reproduction. We discussed the 8 phases of sexual reproduction. Now we are with the adolescence age and we are going to discuss the differences between the male adolescence and female adolescence character. Take a screenshot. Right. I told it's called the age of puberty. In girls, the age of puberty is little early. In boys, the age of puberty is little late. In males, what are the changes we can see at the time of adolescence? And in females, what changes we can see at the time of adolescence? Now, when we tell what is the age of adolescence in males, I told it is 13 to 16 years. This is the age of puberty in boys. Whereas in girls, it is 10 to 14 years. Means at 10 years itself, they might get their sexual maturity. 10 to 14 years is the age of puberty in girls. It's the age of puberty in girls. Now, what do you mean by age of puberty? Age of puberty means where reproductive organs development happens. The male reproductive organ, the male gonad is testis here. The female reproductive organ is ovaries here. So, testis development starts, right? Testis development starts. Testis enlargement starts. Ovary development starts. The female gonad is called ovary. Ovaries development starts. Now, the testes, when they are developing, they start producing the male sex hormone. Now, till 13 to 16 years, they don't have the ability to produce the male sex hormone. So, means at the age of puberty, testosterone hormone production starts. So, we can tell the male sex hormone. What is the male sex hormone? It's called androgen. The most common type of the male sex hormone is testosterone production starts. Testosterone production starts here. Whereas in females, female sex hormone is called estrogen. Ovaries will produce the female sex hormone. Female sex hormone. What is the female sex hormone? I told it is estrogen production starts. Estrogen production starts. Now, under the influence of these male and female sex hormones only, the reproductive organ development will happen. Now, at the age of puberty, many secondary sexual characters also we can notice in boys and girls. So, many secondary sexual characters. Many secondary sexual characters develop. Here also the same thing. We will list down one by one. Many secondary sexual characters develop. Now, how can you make out that the boy has reached the age of adolescence? You can see mustache start growing, then beard start growing, underarm hair grows, pubic hair grows, right? So, hair development in various regions. Hair development, where pubic region, hair will grow. Then next, mustache development, beard development will happen. Then next, underarms and armpits also hair will develop, right? So, hair development in these regions, pubic region, underarms, mustache and beard development. In girls, so hair development, pubic hair development will be there. Hair development, where does it happens? In the pubic region and armpits. Hair development happens. Then, what are the other changes we can see in the boys? Like the larynx, Adam's apple formation will happen. So, development of larynx, right? Formation of prominent Adam's apple. Now, here in the Adam's apple, the muscles become thick. Because the muscles become thick in this Adam's apple, they have low pitch voice, right? So, voice changes during adolescence, right? Low pitch voice. Whereas, that muscle development will not happen in females. So, in females, the voice will be high pitch voice and Adam's apple development will not be there. So, we can just write down high pitch voice will be there. low pitch voice in males, high pitch voice in females. And then in males, muscular development. This testosterone helps in more muscular development. Whereas estrogen and progesterone hormones helps in more fat deposition. It helps in more lipogenesis. Lipogenesis means fat deposition. Now, in females, at the age of puberty, menstruation process also starts. The process of menstruation begins. The process of menstruation begins, and in females, breast development will happen. And the pelvic region becomes broad because later uterus development and all baby development will happen in the pelvic region. So in females, the pelvic region undergoes enlargement. Pelvic region undergoes enlargement, whereas in males, the pelvic region gets narrowed. The pelvic region in males, it becomes narrow. In females, we are telling it becomes broad, right? So then what else we can see? This androgen, it increases their BMR. Increase in basal metabolic rate. Increase in basal metabolic rate. Increase in aggressiveness. Right? So for us, the BMR, basal metabolic rate, will not increase. It is a normal BMR. Normal basal metabolic rate. Normal basal metabolic rate will be there and aggressiveness will not be there, right? So these are certain developmental changes what we can see in boys and girls at the age of puberty, which we call it as adolescence. So we told in males, the age of adolescence is late 13 to 16 years. In girls, it is 10 to 14 years. So at the time, the sex organ development starts. Here the sex organ is testis, development starts. Here it is ovaries. Now the male sex organ start producing the male sex hormone called testosterone. The female sex organ called ovary starts producing estrogen, which leads to different secondary sexual characters. The male secondary sexual characters: pubic hair development, underarm hair development, mustache formation, beard formation. Their larynx will become thicker because of that. The voice will become low pitch voice. Adam's apple will be prominent. More musculature will be there. Pelvic region becomes narrow because they don't require to sustain the embryo inside. Then increase in BMR, increase in aggressiveness, and development of penis, development and growth of penis will happen. So all these are the changes which we can notice in boys, whereas in girls, hair development, pubic hair will be developed and axial hair, underarm hair will be developed. Our voice, since that thickening will not be there, voice will be high pitch voice. So in girls, because the embryo should be protected from the environment, shock-proof environment, for that lipogenesis will happen. And the process of menstruation begins every month. The egg formation and egg shedding will happen. Breast development will happen because we are mammals, right? So the mother has to nourish the child. For that, breast formation. And the pelvic region. The pelvic region undergoes enlargement because inside uterus is there and the embryo development should happen. The basal metabolic rate will be normal, whereas the basal metabolic rate will be high here. So this is about introduction to the chapter human reproduction. Now in the next session, we will start directly with the male reproductive system. Any comments, you can post it in the box. If you like the lectures, like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.